Bonjour, bonjour à toutes et à tous. Good morning, everyone. This morning's session is going to be in English because our guest speaks English.
Some English, yeah.
Some other foreign languages as well, but
A little bit.
those we won't understand, I'm sure, if you take
Can
it
you
on.
do Faroese? Faroese?
No. Danish, no. Switch, no. English is going to be okay. We are thrilled to have today, for the first time in Wine Paris. I mean, I think we've been inviting you for 3 years in a row, and finally you accepted to come. So it's a big honor for us, and definitely we are thrilled to have Heini with us. Heini, you know him. For sure you know him, or you know his application. Let's make a quick test here. How many of you have the Vivino application in their phone? I think we had 80%, yeah, 80% market share. So that's pretty good. You still have 20% to improve.
Yes, yes.
So Heini is, in our world of tech and wines, WineTech is a superstar. You're a rock star for us. He managed to build a company from a country which is not well known for wine producing.
Just drinking.
Just drinking, which is something at least. And he managed to build the first unicorn in the wine tech world called Vivino, starting with a very simple application, recognizing labels on bottles. Many had the same ideas at the time. You were plenty having this application, but you cracked it. So it will be interesting to understand how did you do for us here, for entrepreneurs. How do you manage to raise that business to $1 billion evaluation of today? Your company has been growing all over the world. It's now becoming a norm. Everybody has the application in the phone. We are thrilled to understand how do you manage to build a company, to raise it, and how much you continue to improve and invest in application, communication. I mean, we all follow your YouTube channel and your podcast. So we would like to understand how do you manage to have such an intense life. You're probably the only entrepreneur in the wine tech who managed to have a Netflix program. Also, this is something we'd like to understand. So where do you live now? Do you live in California? Do you live in Denmark?
In Copenhagen back now.
All right.
But it gets cold in the winter, so we go to Spain quite a lot. So.
Okay.
So learning Spanish, I'll speak French one day too.
I mean, you live in a plane, basically. So once again, it's a big honor to have you. Thank you very much for taking the time. A big round of applause for Heini.
Pleasure.
And it's an honor for us as well to have one of the best journalists in order to interview the best entrepreneur. Charlie is at the head of Les Echos, managing all the startups section. So she's the one who knows about this business. She's probably the best in France to interview Heini. So we're thrilled to hear your question and to hear the answers. Floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. What a pressure. Thank you very much again for...
There's a lot of pressure, huh? Oh my God.
So we're going to be together for more than maybe 30, 40 minutes, and then we have a Q&A session, so you can ask all the questions you want. And so my first question is, before Vivino, you were in the antivirus sector, so after you wanted to build something fun?
Yes, I worked in software security, and it's a good business. It's also not exciting. It is a somewhat boring business, honestly. And I said when I stopped there, I want to do something fun, something that I can have more fun with, a product that I'm more passionate about. And I'm not from the wine industry at all, but I just wanted to do something that was just a lot more fun. And wine is definitely fun.
So, and what was the why? So why did you decide to build this business in the first place?
Yeah, so I was basically looking for an opportunity. I was looking for a problem to solve. I think in startups, a lot is about timing. And when you really look at when we launched in 2010, a few things were coming together, right? Smartphones were starting. iPhone launched in 08, 07, App Store in 08, and it's starting to grow. At the same time, all the phones were online. They all had cameras. So this idea of recognizing a wine label was not a very original idea, but nobody had really, it just made a lot of sense. A lot of people had the idea, let's go and do this. So I didn't do any big market analysis. I just thought, like, I cannot be the only one who has this problem. You see this wall of wine, and you don't know what to buy. Like, it's really quite simple. Love wine, not sure what to drink and what's not so good.
So, and was it a handicap or a strength? Was it a handicap or a strength to be not to be from this the wine sector?
Yeah, so I got to be careful what I say in this room, right? But no, I honestly think that disruption often comes from the outside. I think that people, there's no grandfather telling me what to do and what not to do. I can do whatever I want. I can take ideas from other places. And actually, I remember when we launched our A round, big round of money back in 2013, and you know, someone said on Twitter, hey, this Danish wine app just raised $10 million. And someone from France said, how the heck is this app not from Bordeaux? And there is some truth in that, right? Why does disruption have to come from the outside? And I think it's many things. We can think different. We can just do things without you thinking about it and so on. So I think it's a massive strength to be from the outside. You have to listen to the industry and to the people in the industry, but not too much. Because then you just end up doing the same thing that everybody else has done, and you got to change it a little bit. And we have, you know, many people said, you can't do that, you shouldn't do that, why would you do that, and so on.
And so there were a lot of apps, you know, in the sector, as you mentioned before. So what was, you know, your differentiation? How did you attack the market?
Yeah, I think one of the core things, again, going back to being an outsider, I think the fact that we were not experts in wine was a major strength, because what really happened, and there were literally several hundreds of different apps in the App Store when we launched. We were not first movers at all. But a lot of the other apps were like, hey, we're 3 people here, we know wine, we should do a wine app. Really, you should not do a wine app. Because the main audience, the people that drink wine, are not wine experts. And we were building an app for those people, for the people that we sort of modeled it in a pretty specific way, people that did not have a wine cellar, but had 5 wines on the kitchen table. And that was important to understand who the user was. So what I always say is, solve a very, very specific problem for a very, very specific audience. And I think we did that. And then the important thing is just keep going. Like, just keep going, keep going, keep going. This is a very hard problem to solve. Maybe not hard, but just takes a long time.
So, and what did the app look like at the really beginning?
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't bring any pictures of that. But it was very, very simple. The core idea, I had started with the idea on the web before building data, but when we started building the app, it was like pretty clear what we wanted to do. And back then, we actually built an extremely simple app that only did one thing: take a picture and get some information back. And the challenge in our space was that we had to have seen all the wines before we could actually give you any information. So it was really, really hard to get the ball rolling. And honestly, this is where most people fail. It's not because we were better than they were. We just kept going. And if you keep going and sort of live through releasing an app that wasn't very good, just keep going. And at some point, there's a tipping point, and then it works more than it doesn't work. And that happened to us, and then the ball really starts rolling.
And how did you find your first users?
Yeah, I mean, the first ones was a lot of friends and people that I just kept saying, install the app, install the app, install the app. And I'd say the world was a little bit different then too. You could put things in the App Store and you got some traction. So we just tried to do as much as we could to get attention. And this is always hard when you launch a new thing, when you get to some kind of tipping point. But that took a really, really long time. And we did everything we could to whoever user we randomly got, give them as good as an experience as possible. Because the fact was that when we released the app, we probably knew 30% of the wines. Actually, we said 30, maybe it was more like 10%. But what we tried to do was that anyone who scanned a bottle of wine at the time, it would go into a manual system, and then would go to our data team, and they would match it manually. So you would scan a bottle of wine, you think, yeah, this shit doesn't work, which it really didn't. And then it went into manual, and then we just matched the manual and said, hey, we found your wine now. And that sort of increased, okay, at least they tried, I might try it again later. And then you built like that and just kept going. And that took us like 2 years of not a very good product to really get that ball rolling. So yeah, it takes money and time to keep going.
Okay. And what are the other challenges that you faced, you know, in the early stages of the launch?
Yeah, I think the biggest was really that building this data. And I mean, technology is one thing. So we've evolved the technology quite a lot. We use different technologies to match with the app now, and it's matches very, very differently now than it did in the early days. In the early days, it used only this pattern recognition, and it was pretty good at guessing the winery, but it would really often get the grape wrong. So it says Merlot with small letters, and we say it's a Shiraz. So now we combine different technologies to do that. So technology was one thing, but really the biggest problem was just the amount of data. Like we have 13, 14 million wines in the database from 200,000 different producers. And what I always say, and this also sounds really simple, when you build something like this, make sure you build it in the right order, meaning we could be adding millions of wines and it didn't make any use, but if you listen to the users and say users are drinking these wines, then you make sure that the data is good on those wines. So everything you do, prioritize according to what the user does. And this is why it's so important to get out there, release the product. It's because if you sit there in the basement and build a wine database, you're not going to build it in the right order because you don't really know what people are drinking, what they're engaging with, and so on. As soon as you go out there, you see those things, and now you can build it in the right order.
And did you hear from the, you know, wine traditional industry?
I heard them laughing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt. Yeah, we did, and I mean, they didn't say much. Like, who are these guys trying to do something? I remember I spoke to a sommelier early on, and I told him about this idea. You can scan the wine, and he said, "Yeah, this gives me the chills." He was not happy that we were. Some people were worried that we would replace them, and that was never the objective. If you are in a restaurant, you have a somm. That is like the best of luxuries. You should really use that somm. But most restaurants you go to or supermarkets you go to, you will not have a somm, and that's where we can sort of elevate things.
And so at the beginning, did you have a business model or a business model in mind already?
Yeah,
because the app was free.
Yeah. Venture capital was the business model. Yeah. We always had the very specific idea what it should be. Meaning, look, it makes a lot of sense that if you scan a bottle of wine, if you rate a bottle of wine, you can also buy it and you make a commission on that. And selling that model to investors and so on, they just said, look, get the traction, win the market, we can worry about that later. And we did worry about that later. But yes, so we always knew what it was going to be, but it was just more important to win the market, and I think that was the right strategy.
And so when you went for a seed round or a Series A round, so you were still in Denmark, or?
Yes, yeah.
And how did you attract the investors? Because at the time it was not that easy that today.
No, good observation. Things have changed a lot, but I mean the data was still pretty good. So the good investors, this was back then it was Swedish and English investors that came in the A round. And they could see that even though this app wasn't that big yet, we were definitely the best and the biggest. So, and this is what they look for, like, is there a winner in this field and so on. So, but it was clear that when these investors come in, that they say, we want to build something really big. That's when I moved to the US, and our philosophy was always, and I think it's still true, that if you want to build something, a consumer app, you probably want to be in the US or have a really, really big footprint. I mean, if you open your phone now and look at the apps there, like 80% of them are going to be from the US. I mean, most of them are going to be from Silicon Valley, right? And that's what we decided. Look, if you want to win the US market, you have to be there. If you win the US, it's very likely you win the world. Not saying it's impossible to do here. I'm saying that it helps in that way. It's also the biggest wine market in the world.
And what did you learn from the US?
We moved to the US in
Yeah.
2013.
2013.
Yeah,
yeah,
13,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And what was it difficult for a foreign, entrepreneur to be in the Silicon Valley at the time?
It was, there were many challenges, but I think the global sort of startup ecosystem and mindset is pretty global. I have a brother who worked in media and television, and which meant that he worked with big media companies, producers, and so on. And he found it very, very different moving from Copenhagen to LA. This culture was extremely different. I think the startup, sort of the way of leading and so on, is actually quite similar. I come from a Scandinavian leadership style. Our leadership styles are different, but the way we think, the way we do, it's very much a global thing. I think moving the family to the US was a much harder task.
And you were the only one to go to the US, so you had a team?
From a business side of view, I was the only one. And I brought my family, so we moved properly over there. And then we built the team there and built the market there. We have, I think, like 30 people in San Francisco now.
Okay. So
just a comment. The reason why you want to go to the US is because you want to find local people that understand the market and so on. So you probably don't want to bring too many people over that think they understand the market and speak good English. That's not going to do it.
Yeah, good point. And how did you manage to scale? That's the big word in the startup ecosystem. How did you reach the first million of users?
Yeah, I'm a product guy, right? I love building great products, and for us, that was the key to everything. And I said a little bit earlier too, is find a very specific audience and solve one problem. And people think, like, what is that one problem? And for us, it was very clear. The one problem the wine user had was, I have this one wine bottle in front of me. I want to know if it's good or not so good. Like, really simple in that way, but it needs a lot of data to be able to do that all over the world. So that was the core thing for us. The other thing, because what drove the growth was the product. It was word of mouth. It's still the case. So 15,000 people install the app every single day now, and we don't do any marketing. And 70-80% of that is word of mouth. And I think the key to that in the early days were people like startups saying, yeah, that's fine, you have a great product. But we really didn't in the beginning. So when you have a product that isn't that great, what you want to do is make sure you have the best product. Remember, the best product doesn't have to be good. It's just, I'm looking for a product, this is the best product. So it's fine to be not a good product while you're building, but try and be the best.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about 2020, of course, with the pandemic.
Yes.
So how was it for you? How did it affect your business?
Yeah, total madness. It was like we had been running for years and years, and then suddenly this comes along, obviously, which is a tragedy for a lot of people and a serious situation. But for us, it all sort of came together. I mean, we have offices all over the world, and we started getting reports from Hong Kong saying, hey, something's up here. And they had the first lockdowns there. And the first lockdowns they did there was like 5 days, and the problem was they couldn't ship either. They couldn't ship, and they shut down everything. And I was like, okay, this is not good. This is our business model. If we can't ship, we're going to be in trouble if this comes all over the world. And this is already in February, maybe even January. I can't remember how early it was, when it started in March. But then they said, yeah, and then it opened up again, and then suddenly, holy shit, there was a lot of demand. So okay, there might be something interesting happening here. But then it started in March, and things just blew up like crazy. And it was an exciting time, but also very difficult, because whereas in some of these months, our demand had tripled, and we're a marketplace, so we rely on all these providers to actually ship the wine, and they call us and say, hey, look, we have this warehouse. We're usually 10 people. You've now tripled, but we can only be 3 people in the warehouse. So we're very busy now. So it was just, it was crazy times, and we grew like crazy.
And you managed to raise way more funds, I guess, like a lot of startup at the time.
Yeah, totally. I think we hit the timing pretty well there. Let's put it that way. So yeah, we more than doubled our revenue in 2020, and 2021 we grew again. And by the end of 2020, we announced in 21, we raised a lot of money. Money was pretty cheap back then, so it was an amazing opportunity to get that. We sort of checked all the boxes. Like, e-commerce was hot, massive growth at the time, profitable. So everything looks amazing. So they just said name the price, and we named the price, and we got the money. So that's cool.
So in today, can you just give us a few figures about Vivino?
Sure. We should talk about the nightmare after COVID, though, instead.
Yeah, of course. True.
No, it was obviously you go all the way up there, and then demand fell. And for us, that was really quite tricky because we had raised a lot of money. So the investors say, hey, well, we're not here to sit on the money. We're going to increase our costs. So what really happens there is that the costs go up and the revenue goes down. And this gap is not good. And that took us quite some time to really figure out we have to do something about that. So it's been a really quite a difficult time because, when times are good, I think we all know this, we tell ourselves all kinds of shit, honestly. And we thought this was never going to stop. Not only people going to keep buying like this, it's also going to grow. And it just honestly didn't happen. So it's been a little bit difficult. But in last year, we made some more sort of decisions and changed things a little bit. So we now have a paid version of the app, which is a great contributor to the app. And then we do more advertising and partnerships. So we quite turned around the business again in 2023 when the e-commerce came down a little bit. We now have 60, 70,000 paying users on the app now too, which is quite cool.
Yes, and did you have to reduce some costs to fire a bit some people?
Yeah. We unfortunately had to do that. We had just hired too many people, and the cost didn't make sense. So we had to let quite a few good people go. So that's never fun, but it's necessary at times.
Okay, and so today, how many users, and you mentioned the paying customers?
Yeah, so we have, we can start with the employees. We're just under 200 people, 100 in Copenhagen. The rest are sort of spread out. I think we're 30 in San Francisco, then all over. But we have 67 million users all over the world. France, actually, when I look at the numbers, is doing really well for us. US has always been our biggest market. But when it comes to users, France is right behind the US, actually number 2 of new users coming in. So quite a lot. But yeah, and we are like 14 million active every single month now. So a lot of active users. So app is doing really well. Some challenges with e-commerce, but app is doing really, really well. I have a quiz, by the way, because I got some data from France. What do you think is the most scanned wine in France? So not the best or just the most scanned. What could that be? They don't want to mention the... It can't be an expensive wine. It's not going to be a DRC or anything, no. So no, I want a specific wine. Specific wine, yeah. What? Yes, brand and a specific, yeah. No, these are way too expensive. Normal people don't drink Ikem. Mouton Cadet. Did someone say? Oh, someone said it down there. There you go. Well done. Yeah. So that's where the volume is, right? People obviously scan and rate wines a little bit, or good wines are overrepresented, but usually the wines that sell really well in the supermarkets, they are really well represented. I think number 2 was the Saint-Emilion from the Union des Producteurs, whatever, something like that, which is really like an $8-9 euro wine too.
And who are your users now? If you have...
Yeah, so we always went for the sort of the big bulk in the middle where people drink a lot, where the market really is. So people that drink wines at the price point from, say, like 7 euros up to like 15 euros. That's really, in Europe, that's been our sweet spot. But it's also moving up. As the app becomes better and better, a lot of people that love wine also use it more and more. I can tell you, if you look at what we sell on the app in France, for example, the average price is 20 euro. And obviously, when it comes to wine bottles sold in France, I would not assume that's 20. It's probably somewhat lower. But it really varies a lot from market to market. And most people don't think about this, but take the US as an example. In the US, which is the biggest wine market in the world, wine is a high-end product. So US is the biggest wine market in the world because it's big, not necessarily because they drink that much wine. It's really a beer country, but they drink expensive wine, and it's much more of a high-end. Just to compare, the 20 euro average price in France, that's 28 euros in the US. It's the exact same product, right? And in Spain, that's much, much lower. I think it's like 10 or something.
And of course, Vivino has a strong community. So how do you engage? How do you this community?
Yeah, I think we probably do a better job at it. But the product is the engagement. We try and do something like this. We've been incredibly fortunate in the way that other community apps really had to go out there and make events and get people in. Our community has just been amazing in engaging with the app in the way that people rate much more than on other apps. I'm trying to remember the numbers, but roughly we get 5 scans, we get 1 rating, right? And if you look at like a TripAdvisor or a Yelp, I mean, they'd have to have 100 people go in to get 1 to rate. I mean, the cynical view of that is it's not because they want to help the community, they just want to remember if the wine is good or bad. But the fact is they really rate a lot and are very, very engaged. So yeah, we're quite privileged.
Okay. And you mentioned a little bit the business model. So now we have this the paying customers. So what do they pay for?
Yes.
Exactly?
So we started out mid last year of releasing this product, and the whole philosophy, just to be very blunt here, is that most people come to Vivino because they love the app. And only about like 3% of the users actually buy. 3. So what we kept pushing them this model, hey, you should buy from us, you should buy from us. But most of them just love the app and they didn't want to buy from us. So the decision to make a premium version was like, hey, we should build something more, give people that love Vivino more Vivino. So we've made an extra fancy scanner, like a quick scanner for them. We make the recommendations better for the people that love wine. We now have a drinking window which is based, so when can you drink a wine, based on our actual data. And this has never been done at scale before because we have so much data. So we can look at every single wine and vintage in the world, almost every, have enough data to see exactly when it tops, when the ratings start going down or people stop drinking them and so on. So that's also something you pay for. So all these small extra features. Yeah, like I said, 60, 70,000 people have signed up so far, so very happy with that.
And you also have the advertising part?
Yeah, so that's the other part of it. The advertising part is for all the free users, so it disappears when you pay. Okay. So no advertising for the paying users. That's the other feature, if you might say so.
Okay, so you have 2 sources of revenue now?
Yeah, you could say 3, the old e-commerce, advertising, and then the premium, yes.
Okay, so you mentioned a lot of the relation with the users. What about the relation that you have now with, the traditional wine industry? And has it evolved or?
Well, I'm here now. I'm invited here. No, it's. I mean, most people, it's always been good. Honestly, I think. I think there were many reasons also for them to say, like, what is this? I mean, first of all, they didn't think the product was very good. They didn't think the data was very good, and most of it was true, right? It took us a while to really build the data up to a quality, and we're very pleased with what that looks like now. But that really took us a while to build. So I get all that. So no, most of the industry is really quite happy. Something we also hear is like restaurants, they don't like that we bring in the price, the actual price, retail price of the wine. But I mean, people would Google anyway. We just made it easier, right? So so some of the industry are a little bit, what the hell is this? But most people love it and appreciate it.
So, and what's the plan? What's the roadmap for 2024?
Yeah, we have a lot of stuff going on. I mean, our focus really has been to get the business part back on track. So we spent a lot of time on that. But we're doing quite a few things with the app and the premium side and so on. Not going to say too much, but follow the podcast and so on. We have more coming.
Okay, and 2024, 2025 are the 2 years that we have the feeling that all the startups want to be profitable.
Yes.
Will you be profitable?
I think 24 actually might be the year, yes. So 2020 we also broke even, and then we started spending again. 24 looks like it right now that we might be again, yeah.
Okay.
Which is nice.
And I have a few more questions, but I'm gonna just ask you the last one, and then we have this Q&A session. But Laurent mentioned at the beginning this documentary about you on Prime Video, Disrupting Wine, the life of an entrepreneur. So did you watch it, and what did you think about it?
I think it was pretty good. It was independent filmmakers from my native Faroe Islands that came to me and said they'd love to do a movie about something they didn't really know. And as they were looking, the movie became a lot about my family, meaning look, I have some ambitions and want to do some things in business and so on, but we have to remember that there are people around us that also pay the price, and it's fine that I want to pay the price, but they didn't ask for it, right? So the movie is quite a lot about that, which I think is a really relevant subject to talk about, that we're not the only ones paying the price for your ambition. So I think it was quite good.
Okay, thank you very much. As I said, I have a few more questions, but if you have any questions, you can raise your hand. Oh, it's good.
There we go. Oh. I hear you. I can repeat it.
So thank you very much. Very interesting. I wanted to what's your take on the low alcohol, and if you see demand or traffic also in the Vivino app, more demand by your customer on this new category, and overall your view on the moderation trend?
So what was the category again?
Sorry?
What category?
The low alcohol wines. If there is
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, so the question is, how are we seeing anything in low alcohol and low calories too, right? Or mostly low? Mostly alcohol, okay, yeah. So I think it's very interesting. I think in beer, they really figured out how to do that well. And now it's a big seller, and I actually enjoy those no alcohol beers and so on. I can say from us in the data so far, we're not seeing a lot of it. It's still very, very small. And my impression is that the quality has improved quite a lot. I'm not sure people are really there yet, but I think it's going to come really soon. Because people care about this. They want to enjoy, some people just want to enjoy great wine and not necessarily buzz. I like the buzz too, but not always, right? Sometimes you go for a lunch and you want to have some wine and maybe you don't want the buzz. So I would love to do it myself. I think it's going to grow, but we're not seeing it in a big way yet, I would say.
Thank you very much for a fantastic presentation here. I'm really enjoying it. I had a question when you talk about, from a Nordic perspective. I'm from Sweden myself, and we have a little bit of Nordic
We had
monopolies.
fun in Sweden.
What was that?
We had fun in Sweden.
I bet you do. I bet you do. So I was thinking about when you mentioned being the best product, and you want to maintain the best product, what will be your strategy for the Nordic countries? I mean, there are other colleagues in the business doing nice stuff too.
Yeah.
What is your take on those markets?
Yeah, so even the Nordics are a little bit split because they're very different. But if you let's talk about Norway, Sweden, and Finland, right? So the reason why that's different is because there is a state monopoly on selling wine, which means that it's been a little bit more tricky for us to sell into those wines. And just to give people a bit of background, back in 2020, I think, we were sued by the state in Sweden. So they said, you are not allowed to ship into Sweden. And we said, no, we are allowed to ship. And the fact is that people had been doing exactly what we've been doing for years and years. We were just a lot more successful. So the local monopoly were just like intimidated by this. And like it's simple. Like if there's no Vino in Sweden, there's no Volvo in France. So this is EU, and we can obviously ship into Sweden. And that court case, basically 3 years in court through 2 different instances, and we won it sort of blank all the way through. So this was pure intimidation by Systembolaget. It's super annoying. And obviously the state shouldn't be suing private enterprise. So I don't know what that was, probably political, but really just a big mess. If we didn't have the money we had, we would have broke our back a long time ago. So the Swedish state should not be involved in this. Anyway, we would like to sell into all those markets. I think we should. But the premium and the advertising also makes it possible for us to do other things. Yeah, it's a very different market. I think we're going to follow also what happens there, because I think things might open up in Sweden now. People are a little bit annoyed by what's happening with Systembolaget, especially when it comes to better wine. Should we have these monopolies in 2024? It's up to the Swedish people, obviously, but I think things might change there. So for our strategy, we're going to follow the market, but we are very, very strong on the user side, Norway, Sweden, especially. In Finland, actually, when we say we have the best product, the local monopoly there has a really good app there, which I think people use a lot in Finland.
Yeah, hi. Here. Hi, Heini. Thank you for this presentation. I have 2 questions in one. First, I was wondering about the revenue stream of your company, just like in percentage, if you can roughly, you were speaking about advertising, e-commerce, and paid. So I just wanted to have an idea. And also I had a question about the trends you're observing, because I think we're all interested in that. So that would be very interesting.
Yeah, from the revenue side, actually e-commerce is still by far the biggest. When it comes to, if you go further down and look at more like gross profit, like where do you actually make money, then advertising and the premium part is really growing quite fast. But it's still, I'm just going to give you like, 70-80% is still from the e-commerce, I would say. But the other part is really growing quite a lot, because it's usually much higher margin. On the trend side, I honestly didn't bring anything specific on that. One thing we always say, and has been going on for years and years, since we are in France anyway, is that every single year we're surprised how rosé keeps growing. And that's been true for a very long time, and we still keep seeing that. But yeah, we have a lot of data, but sometimes we have to ask the data very specifically what is and so on. Another thing I could mention was that we looked at how did people drink more during COVID and so on. We did not see that. They just drank more at home, which meant more e-commerce and so on. The other thing I think is online is, so we've experienced like a fall in e-com, and so has everyone else. We have numbers from other peers and so on. It's very similar. So e-commerce has been going down, and I think it's just going to normalize and hit a line, and then go on back on a sort of slow growth path again. But it has to go back to that line again before. That's short answer.
Hey, Heini, how are you? One for kind of all entrepreneurs. What advice do you have for your first 5 customer conversations, either for validating that the need is there, or for defining what that order for building out new features would be?
Yeah, big question. I think I can say a couple of things. I mean, first, I think make sure they're not your family and friends. Make sure that they are actually real customers. I mean, your family and friends are going to say they love what you're building because they love you, not whatever you're building. So find someone who is really in the target audience, and it's fine that they're a little bit hostile, actually. And then really listen to what they're saying. I mean, a lot of entrepreneurs are, like, I don't want to say full of themselves, but we think we have the best ideas. And we have ideas that are just not necessarily the best. So really listen to those customers, because they are going to determine what direction the product goes. But yeah, anyway, I could speak for hours about that, but just a little bit of direction there. I would say one thing, like, have some very specific metric of what you're trying to solve. For us, in the early days, it's really quite simple. The first users, like, how many wines are we matching? Like, just focus on that. And when you set those metrics, I'm always careful with setting clear goals because you don't know what's going to happen, but focus on growth. So look, we're going to keep growing, because it's really hard. Sometimes you set too high goals or too low goals. Focus on growing all the time. That's always because it's really hard to predict when you're that early.
What an amazing journey and very fast. So really congratulations. And thanks for sharing all this data with us. So Vivino is managing millions of data, millions and millions of data. Some of them, I suppose, come from users. How do you ensure on the quality of the data that you are managing?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and especially as the data becomes more and more valuable, meaning it becomes valuable to manipulate that data. So just to give you an idea about what our data is, so most of the core data we build ourselves, meaning, hey, what is the region? What do we know about the region? What are the grapes in there? All those things, we build these core data ourselves. Users can give us feedback, say, hey, this is not right, and then we sort of correct it. So that's sort of the basic data. What actually a wine tastes like, and the more subjective things come from the user. And we have very sort of sophisticated algorithms to figure out why is this outlier, what is this user doing, and so on. But it's a race, and we're always going to be behind. Someone's always going to keep trying to do this, and we see more and more of it. But we also see some patterns, meaning it's usually wines with fewer ratings that people try and push in a certain direction. You can't lie to the user. If you say this bottle of wine is a 4.1 and you cheat some rate, as soon as that wine is sold, people say, fuck no, it's not. It's a 3.7, and then it corrects itself really quickly. So as soon as a wine gets ratings, it's very, very credible. We have some algorithms that I'm not going to tell you about here to try and avoid all that. Yes, machine learning, artificial, and so on, yes.
Hi, I'm here.
Hey.
That was my second question because I have two. So the second was about what about the integration of artificial intelligence into the app? And first, I'm a wine producer. How can I help promoting my wines on the app?
Yeah, so a little bit about AI. We use it a little bit. We're going to use it more and more. As AI is incredible, and we're looking at all kinds of ways to use AI more and more. In the recommendation, it's mostly machine learning, but we're going to use AI more and more for sure. I mean, what I would do as a wine producer, I would make sure at least I keep a good eye on Vivino's data and make sure things are right, reach out to us if things are not accurate. And we have a program for wineries too that you can sign up to. Depending on the size, you pay to get more promotion on there, so you can put videos on there and storytelling, all those things. So I would really make sure that you look good on Vivino. I would do that, and most of that we do for free. But there's also more advertising you can buy on top. The other thing we've done, which is relatively new, is we've built a hub in Germany with a partner. Where we take wine in on consignment. Right now, it's mostly the wines that are in most demand, but we're going to open that up to more people, which means that you can put the wine into our hub in Germany, and then everyone in Europe can buy it. And this is something we're very, very excited about because we love like direct to consumers and so on, but fact is that most wineries are just not ready for it. They don't have the capacity to be shipping every day and have FedEx come every day. So that's why we built this hub in central Germany, so we can sort of move things around quickly. So that's another thing you can look into.
Thank you so much. I have a question about the data, because this word popped up quite a while, quite a couple of times. Vivino has the most comprehensive wine database, most likely in the world. At some point in time, do you think there will be a consideration of sharing the data with B2B for the market intelligence purposes, or in some way to influence, because the critics are, Vivino is the new critic of the wine, you know what people are drinking. Do you think there is a direction of going into their influence on what's drinking and sharing the data with business to business or companies?
Yeah, great question. I mean, most of the data is actually available out there. It's on the web and in the app, so you can find most of it. But if you want to do sort of more sophisticated stuff, you need some kind of access. So we do a couple of things there. Some wineries and other customers will buy access, and we build dashboards for them so they can follow who's drinking their wine and what else are they drinking and so on. So we do a lot of those things for our customers. But I think down the line, building some kind of API that's open, obviously, they'd have to pay for that, but making it more open, we're fine with that. And like I said, most of the data is already available out there, but we haven't really built systems for that yet. I think we would in the future, yeah.
We have time for one more question. Please, we need to keep up on the timing. So, Philippe?
Thank you. Well, congrats, of course. You're a rock star for us. With all the data you have and all the knowledge you have on the users, but also on the wines that succeed in such and such countries, would you see a point in adding up to your company something like marketing consultancy for wineries, helping them be better at digital marketing?
I think there are certain things we could do. I also want to sort of clarify one thing, that user data we're not ever in the business of selling any sort of user data. We would never do that. But aggregated data and so on, we could. So if someone comes to us and say, hey, we're looking to launch a new Sauvignon Blanc, and we're building it for the German market, what works really well in the German market? We can dig into the data and see exactly what Sauvignon Blancs do well, what do they actually taste like in Germany. So yes, we can do all those things, and we don't see big demand on it, but we get it once in a while where we can say to people, okay, this is what you need to build, and this is what the price point you usually can hold. Yeah, so we wouldn't want to do it ourselves, but we'd contribute somebody else to build that kind of stuff.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Charlie, for those questions. I'm very passionate. Thank you for sharing. You share a lot for us. That's a lot of inspiration. Definitely, there was a lot of quotes today you gave us. I know that disruptions come from the outside. I like that one. Solve a very specific problem for a very specific audience. That's the focus. I think it's very important. Keep going, keep going, keep going. We know that, but sometimes it's good to repeat it. And I like this. I'm a product guy. I love building great product, and I think you managed to create a fantastic progress. So a big round of applause for Heini. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think that we're going to take a selfie just to get that moment very immortalized in French. So come to us, come with us. Charlie, come near to us. For the first time, you in Paris at la WineTech. Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.